Hello everyone, happy Christmas. By the time I release this episode, it will be Christmas Day. Today is a couple of days before, so I hope you've made it through this crazy, loving, little bit insane time of year. It is a good time of year though, isn't it? People are a little bit more generous. There's a nicer sort of energy to the place, and I think that's probably related to people giving, and I think generally speaking, people get a little bit of pleasure out of doing that. I don't know what is the Christmas spirit that is so often mentioned. Is it the increased connectedness we feel as people, or is it the spiritual side of it, or is it the chance we get to actually give other people presents and love and attention and company? It's probably a combination of all these things, and takes us away from our usual routine, and puts us in this place that we we like to be, which is connected and loved and feel worthy, basically. So yeah, I hope you're enjoying your day if you're listening to it on Christmas Day, and yeah, um, hopefully you're getting to spend it with some people you want to spend it with. Because let's face it, that's not always the case, is it? Those family reunions are sometimes challenging. But today, just a normal episode, even though it is Christmas Day, I will read another experience. This one's from a guy called Romy on the endurf.org website. I was in a car with my family on a trip in India when suddenly there was a commotion. There was a sound of the car going off the road, and I could see both my brothers, one who was sitting in the back and one in the front, jumping and trying to catch the wheel. The car was tumbling down the mountain. The circumstances in the car were in the back of my awareness. In the front of my awareness, I heard a masculine, comforting voice say several times slowly, "It is all okay." Part of the meaning of this in Hebrew is everything is in order. Surprisingly, I was experiencing absolute peace, and I felt absolutely no fear. As the car was tumbling down the mountain, turning and bumping against the hard surfaces, the voice just calmly said, "Roll with it," as if it were just a movement exercise. Feeling absolute peace, I let myself roll. The voice came as if from inside of my head, but at the same time, it wasn't me. It was very comforting, stable, and strong. I did not recognize the voice, but I connected to it very deeply, and I knew I could trust it with all my heart. As I was rolling, with every tumble, I suddenly wasn't in the car anymore. I experienced complete trust. I was surrounded with space. I saw my whole life unfolding. I was watching millions of the pictures of my life's events like a movie broken down into picture frames. All the little deeds, thoughts, and moments upon moments, even the ones I forgot ever happened, they were all there. It was such a fascinating sight. The most curious thing was that the pictures were not connected to one another. They had a gap between them that looked like a string of light. It looked like they were threaded upon this string of light. The main feelings were equanimity, awe, and curiosity. There was a strong quality of inquiry and inquisitiveness as I was examining everything. Every time a question came to me, the answer was immediately revealed. This unfolding of pictures and gaps developed and progressed continuously, presenting a constant, delicate, consequential line in perfect order, a chain of events. Yet somehow they were all happening at once. The past, the present, and the future were all happening at once. It was inspiring to witness the order and sense that all these little pictures seemed to have in the big picture. I felt a lot of compassion. I was all forgiven. In fact, there was nothing to forgive. I could see that my life had perfect order to it. In some way, it was like watching a mathematical equation or sum that made perfect sense. Such event and such event create this kind of result. It was a simple portrayal of natural cause and effect, with a gentle understanding. There was no judgment, only innocence, as I was watching this linear unfolding of pictures. I realized that just by looking and focusing on a specific picture or zooming in on it, I could also enter that scene and then come back out of it and zoom out and return to my place of observation. I looked back at my childhood. I could see pictures there. From every picture, moment, or thought, there was always the possibility to access that light that separated between it and the next picture. I could see all the thoughts I had in my life. Their pictures were as strong as the pictures that depicted actions or words. I was amazed to see that our thoughts are that strong, so real. It looked as though they were also threaded on a string of light. I realized that everything had happened to me, and every single thought I had created an imprint. Every single event or thought influenced my life and the lives of those around me. Every feeling, every intention, every time I was aware of the light and the gap between the pictures, everything counted. As I looked, I felt very peaceful. I could see how the last moment of my life was a result of everything that had ever happened to me before. I could see my life was this perfect manifestation of just what it was, who it was. There was complete acceptance, even of those moments that are remembered as less pleasant. My life, all of our lives, were threaded with this light that filled the gap between each picture. In the moments that we are open to it, we connect with it. It's that simple. It is always there. The last moment or picture of my life, I was rolling down the mountain in a car with my mother, my brother, and the driver. I was suddenly inside that picture again. I could see how we were all connected. I was connected to everybody in a multifaceted light web, a DNA-like hologram that was in perfect order. Everything connected to everything with delicate threads of light, which were the gaps between each moment. It showed my connection to other people, other souls, other incidents, moments, past, future, and present. There was complete order and complete acceptance of everything. Then there were no more pictures, but a strong sense of motion forwards. I now was continuing onwards. I felt that I was leaping forward. There was nothing around me. There was only space. I tried to understand where I was. I felt very clear in my mind. I also felt happy and light. I was in another realm. Somehow, I was still alive, but I didn't have my body. I know for a fact that I am, that I exist. I sensed that I had left my body. I reflected upon the last picture I saw in my thread of my life, of myself inside the car that was rolling down a mountain, and concluded it must have been the last moment of my life in a fatal car accident. I now realized and understood that there was life after death. I have died and left my body, yet I still exist. I tried to understand where I was. Was I in a transition? All I could notice different from before, besides not having a body, was that the air or the space was a slightly different consistency and shade. I reflected on how this whole transition between life and death is very smooth and calm. It became clear to me that death is the continuation of life, not the opposite of it. It was going on. I felt vibrant like a child, very curious to see what was next, looking at everything with new eyes. Next, I felt myself emerging out of a vacuum-like blackness. I had immense speed. I had no body, but my spirit had eyes. Around me was a scenery like earth. There were trees and rocks. We were on a mountainside. I say we because after travelling for a while swiftly through this scenery, I could see myself, my body, sitting on the mountain's edge. I was leaning forward towards the abyss. I joined my body to see what was going on and found myself looking at this immense light. It was amazing. I recognized the light from meditation experiences I had had, moments of insight, spiritual experiences, and strong experiences of unconditional love. Actually, I realized this light was threaded inside every moment of my life, and I have always known it and had access to it. I felt deep intimacy and powerful love, a great surrender, relief, and joy. From what I have seen, our lives were threaded with this light, which fills the gap between each moment. At each moment, every situation, and every thought, the light is always available to us. If we're aware that it's there, we can remind ourselves to call on it, to connect to it. I was now sitting near this light, near the source of it. I had never felt it so strongly. It was everything. everything I've ever needed, everything I need, or everything I might ever need in the future. Everything was in this light. It was warm. It had an immense healing and nourishing quality to it. It was pure, immense, powerful, unconditional love. I knew I could trust this light. I was kneeling in front of this light. All I could feel was a great yearning to be part of it. I was aware of being presented with a choice. With gratitude, I decided that I must emerge with this light. I know that I do not want to choose anything different. I smiled a big smile and jumped for one eternal moment. I was one with it. The next moment, I saw my body lying on the ground and felt like I was entering into it. I came back to life. I understood that somehow I'm back in human life. I felt very surprised since I didn't think I had made that choice. The first thing I realized was that I cannot breathe. The voice that was with me at the beginning of my experience came back and said, "Contract your diaphragm." I did forcefully, and that's how I started to breathe. Then I began to feel my senses. There was a terrible taste in my mouth like dirt, and a horrible smell in the air that was filled with gasoline and smoke. For the next hour, many interesting things happened. I think that because of the NDE, a different window of perception has suddenly opened in my awareness. It was as if that window took some time to close. For a while, even though I was back here in my body, I could get glimpses from that other realm. I can in all honesty say that the NDE I had was the most powerful, insightful, and joyous experience I have ever had. And that's the end of the experience. I'll just correct what I said at the start because it says here that Romy is a girl. I didn't know that. So this is her experience, Romy's experience. I quite like that. I got a little bit confused in parts of it, but yeah, it was nicely written. The To be honest, I'd like to hear more of what actually happened because she finishes on a bit of a cliffhanger there. Like she's come back into her body, but what has happened to the rest of her family in this car crash? I'd like to know if everyone survived or and what happened to her life after this experience because she says that in the immediate aftermath of this experience that she has some really unusual, inexplicable type, you know, experiences. It's like she's kind of got one foot in this other dimension and one foot still here on Earth, and um, with that perception, she's able to have a bit of a look at what is going on behind the veil, and that's all she says. She doesn't go into details as to what that was like, but she says that this NDE was simply the most powerful, insightful, and joyous experience she has ever had, and that says it all. Really, that's I guess sums it up beautifully and puts it all into perspective for me as to how profound this experience was for her. The thing I love about these experiences is they rekindle that faith in who you truly are when you forget. And let's face it, all of us lose a bit of faith every now and then when the heaviness and darkness of being a human being becomes overwhelming. And with those sensations, often your faith in the light, in God, in something beyond this physical realm gets smothered, and it's really hard to see what or believe that there's anything else in there, because the challenges, the drama, the difficulties that life can bring can strangle that faith and belief that there's something out there that is powerful and loving and the source of all that is, and to go a step further, that you're actually a fragmentation of that source. It becomes obscured because there's less chance of that being true, when, or feeling like it can be true, when you are facing problems or difficulties. So that's why I love reading these experiences, because it helps me remind me about who I truly am, where I'm truly from, where I go back to, and also it reminds me that this light, this source, this energy, this God, whatever you want to call it, is obviously all around us at all times, because it is everything. And you don't have to cross over to this next dimension to experience it. You can do it right here, right now, like this experience goes into. She says that she's aware now, after having this experience, that she can tap into this light at any time she wants to. But I'll get into that in a sec. Let's just go through it again. So here she is. She's on a holiday with her family in India, and I've seen a few videos of some of those crazy mountainside roads that you see in India, and I'm not surprised that she has an accident there. I'm sure it's a pretty common occurrence. If you want to have a look, there's probably some pretty easy videos to find on the dangerous mountainous roads in places like India and Nepal. So here she is. She's cruising along with her family, and suddenly there's some commotion and there's some noises, like the sound of a car going off the road. So I'm guessing there's lots of crashes and bangs and pops and scrapes. And she says that she can see her brothers, one who's sitting in the back and the other one in the front, jumping up and trying to get their hands on the steering wheel, but it's kind of too late, because they're at this point off the road and actually tumbling down the mountain. And then she says her awareness kind of separates a little bit. So she's aware of what is going on in the car, but at the same time, she says she can also hear with another part, a different part, almost a separate part of her awareness, a voice. And the voice is saying, of all things in this extremely perilous situation, everything is okay. Everything is in order. And along with these words comes a little bit of detachment from the fear she's experiencing as she's potentially hurtling towards a death down a mountain in India. She's feeling absolute peace. There's no fear. So it's interesting, isn't it? Like, you can be in that situation where, when we think about it now, that everything you would be experiencing would point to you being absolutely terrified. But in Romy's situation, there's none of that. It's peace. I guess if you've got this calm voice that you've never heard before, don't know where it's coming from, and it's saying it's okay, everything is fine, and and you're tumbling down this mountain, but you don't feel fear. Yeah, it doesn't make much sense, but these near-death experiences, they're experiences of another dimension where the normalities of Earth life are swept away, and the laws and rules that we consider normal here are often, what we experience here on Earth pales in comparison to what this next dimension is like, in terms of the freedom and infinite possibilities that are within this other realm. So, yeah, even though that might not sound sense, that she's going down this mountain and heading towards a death potentially, and should be feeling terrified, but isn't. She's feeling the opposite. Even though that might sound a little bit strange and weird, it's quite possible, even normal, when people have these experiences, to jump out of their body and kind of view the situation from a different perspective that is removed from what we would be experiencing as a human if we were in that body at that particular moment. So she seems to be out of her body a little bit here, even though she doesn't actually use those words. So she says this voice is coming from inside of her head, but she knows it's not her. She knows it's not her thoughts. Like, we've all got that voice in our head where we can listen to our thoughts if we want to. But for her, it's she's aware that this voice is coming from a different place. She goes on to give a few more words to describe what it was like. The voice, it was comforting, it was stable, it was firm, it was strong, and she doesn't recognize it, but at the same time she absolutely trusts it with all her heart, and can and feels deeply connected to it. So I'm kind of thinking, like, if this lady can get to this point of experiencing a situation which is absolutely terrifying, and feel calm and peaceful, surely we can take a little bit of a lesson from this ourselves, and in our own lives, when we do feel fear and worry about this life we have as a human. And even though we're not tumbling down a mountain in a car heading towards a huge crash, I guess in some ways we can just take a step back and say, look, everything is fine, everything is okay. You just got to roll with this, and if you don't fight it so much, it'll become a little bit easier. I guess what I'm saying there is, yeah, just try to accept the experience you're having without um, fighting. Just go with it. It's, yeah, don't resist it. It's easier when you just go with the flow, and stop fighting it. Just accept that that's the way it is. If it's hard, it's hard. Eventually, it'll become easier again, and yeah, it's that relentless flow of energy, going from a more pleasant, higher vibrational state to a lower, denser one, and continues on. So what's she saying now? So this voice is talking to her. It feels very comforting. Uh, and and then this is the first time she sort of describes in this experience actually leaving her body when she uses those words. And she says, as this happens, it's like the the physical realm we're in now, it just vanishes, it disappears, and it is replaced by space. Doesn't say what color that is. I'm guessing black. So I guess space is black. And suddenly in this space, her life review starts. And I like how she has described her review here. So we'll go through this again. So she describes it as millions of pictures. So just like photo frames, not not like a movie. It's like lots of different pictures is the way I'm picturing it in my head. So not like we're sitting down in a movie and watching an image flow. It sounds like there's separate photos, and she can look at each one of these photos and see the moment in them and the thoughts she was having during that time, and they're all there. She says like every single moment of her life is in this picture display, even those seemingly insignificant moments and the forgettable ones, the ones she had totally forgotten. And she says this is a fascinating sight, and it would be, wouldn't it, if you just suddenly saw your whole life in front of you in little pictures. It's amazing to think that all of our lives are just on this constant record, like we're constant being filmed, if you like those reality shows. But there's no camera there. It's just the source that is able to do these miraculous type things, and thankful for us, we get to go back and look at over our lives once they're done, or even in this case, they're not done, they're half done in Romy's case, and she gets to kind of have a look at what it was like up to that point. I guess the thing she gets out of it though is okay, so she just goes into a little bit more detail here. She says the curious thing was the pictures were not connected to one another. They had a gap between them that looked like a string of light, and looked like all of these pictures were threaded upon this string of light. So she is just in awe. She can't believe what she's seeing. She was super curious, as well as you would be. Suddenly seeing your whole life before you, you're in this other dimension. You can analyze any period of your life that you like. You can see it in more detail than you ever experienced while you're actually a human, in terms of seeing what you're thinking at that time, going into what other people perceived you as, what they were thinking. And I guess that's kind of scary sometimes when you think of it from a human perspective. But at the same time, I'd be very curious as well. And yeah, I'd be very inquisitive, and would want to know more and more and more, and would just you can spend an eternity going through all that, not just your life, but if you're able to do your own, there's no reason why you can not go and do the same with some other people you'd like, or famous people, or whatever, in different periods of history, and have a life review of their life. I I don't see why there would be any reason that wouldn't happen. I mean, we're all from the source. We're all just wearing these human bodies, and it's not who we truly are. So even though it might sound invasive from a human point of view now, that we can't go and go through other people's lives, but probably from this other dimension, we'll see it from a different perspective, and get to do another person's life review if that's, I guess, what you wanted to do. So she goes into a little bit more detail here, and I love it. I love to hear the experience of a life review in a little bit more depth because we don't often get that. So she says the unfolding of pictures and gaps developed and progressed continuously, presenting a constant, delicate, consequential line in perfect order. Uh, so she's kind of looking at her life from this point of view now, and she's seeing how, I guess what I'm getting out of that line there is the decision she's made has got her to this point. She sees how the perfection in her own experience as a human. And then she jumps to this next line. She says, the past, the present, and the future are all happening at once. So that's one of these lines in one of these experiences where I have to just step away and accept that that is what this person experienced and put my hand up and say, yeah, look, I can't understand or try to even picture what seeing past and the present and the future is like. But this other dimension is timelessness. So, of course, it's going to look, feel, be experienced in a totally different way to what we experience in a dimension where time is a big part of it. So in her review, she doesn't really feel judged. In fact, she feels a lot of compassion. She says there's nothing for her to forgive, and or be sorry for or embarrassed about. She says that she can see her life has this perfect order to it. It's in from the perspective she's seeing it like a mathematical equation, like that all kind of adds up and makes sense. It's like, okay, well, if I did this and then that and then that and then that happened, that's course that's the logical outcome. It's just like she's being shown this cause and effect type scenario, or I guess you could even put that as karma. I guess you could term it as karma. She's just saying, well, if I'm like this, of course that's what's going to come back to me. That's kind of what the way I'm interpreting that. But yeah, she's saying that there's no judgment. It's like we're all just so innocent here. We obviously, the older we get, the more wise we wisen up a little bit to how Earth kind of works. And but yeah, when we're young, it's all new, and it's a learning experience, and to think that we probably are really ill children, even if we live to 100 years old, because we don't have that access to this wisdom that is all around us, and it's a learning period up until the last breath we have. Really, it's although the repetition and the experience of life become a little bit they become a little bit repetitive the older you get, and there's always something new to learn though and experience. And I think even if you get to a ripe old age, you're still never an expert at life, and there's still lots more that we can learn and grow from, even into our senior years. So yeah, here we go. Another paragraph about her experience. She says she goes back to her childhood and has a look at the pictures there. And the thing she notices at this point is the possibility that she can access the light that separates the pictures. So this is where I got a little bit confused. She can see, yeah. So she's so yeah. This line there, I don't really. Uh, she has access to the light that separated each picture. So I'm not too sure. Oh, okay. So that by that she means in this light she can see the thoughts. She can see the actions, the words that were going on in this scene. And she realizes that everything that happened to her and every single thought she had creates an imprint. Every single every single thought affects her own life and the lives of everyone around her. So every feeling, every intention, every little way we react in this life, it's all recorded, and it all has an influence on those around us. But yeah, but at the same time, it doesn't matter if you mess up. It's just the way this experience is designed. It's yeah, but she can see these thoughts and feelings that they're tangible in this place. It's like they're an entity on their own that are powerful, and they can create outcomes that I guess we on Earth aren't really fully aware of. We're not aware of how powerful our thoughts can be, but often when I read these experiences, they will mention that the thought is a very powerful tool, and it needs to be, you know, put, if possible, put in a direction that is beneficial to yourself and beneficial to those around you, rather than seeking to destroy or separate or hate. It's a powerful thing, and I guess that makes sense because often, your thoughts do become your actions, which become your words, which become your behavior, and before you know it, becomes who you really are. So if you're able to control those thoughts and push them in a direction that you think will make you a happier person, then it's worth attempting to adjust your way of thinking if you can. Not an easy thing to do, though. So Romy goes on to say that her life, all of her lives, are threaded by this light that fills the gap between each picture. So we're all connected, I guess is another way of saying this. We're all one. And she goes on to say that this light is not just something we can experience in this other dimension. In the moments we are open to it here, we're able to tap into it, we're able to connect it. It's as simple as that. It's always there, it always will be there. It's a part of who we are. So, yeah, she makes it so simple though. She says, look, all we have to do is be aware that Source, God, life, love, um, energy of unconditional love is always there. It's always around us. And if we just put our thoughts towards connecting to that, then it happens. And I guess miraculous things start to happen. I can relate to this myself. I have these regular little reminders in my life of this source energy. I've got owls. I've got little. Whenever I see an X on a street sign or anywhere, just the letter X, it reminds me of love. I've got lights that just when I see a light in a room, I feel or reminded and bring into my consciousness that reminder of there being more to me than what I think I am in this dimension, and it's comforting to know. And when I do that, I feel when I am reminded of that higher being, it can help me unwind in a situation. But yeah, it's not the answer to all my problems in life. It just helps me a little bit. So yeah, some food for thought there if you want to give that a try. Set a few little common things around you as a reminder to connect to the source, and try giving that a go. But as you know, as a lot of these experiences say, she's connected. Like this light is everything. It's we're connected to other people. We're connected to other souls. We're connected to moments in the past and the future. And this light is all those things, and it is what we are too. So when people are able to communicate with um, souls that have crossed over, it's no real surprise, really, when you think what people say about these experiences and their ability to um, connect, and you know how we're all connected, and just because we're in this physical body now doesn't mean we can't communicate with people we once knew. So this next part of the experience is when she moves on from the life review and feels as though she says in her words that she's continuing onwards, she's leaping forward, but there's still nothing around her. The scenes from her life have gone, and she only has or experiences or sees space now. Then she starts describing a little bit of what this feels like, though. She says she's feeling happy and light. She's aware that she's in another realm, and she knows that she doesn't have her body anymore. But she knows that she still exists. She knows that her life has continued on. And she is starting to join the dots that, okay, so I was just looking at my life in pictures, and the last picture I saw was rolling down a mountain inside her car. And she's thinking, okay, well, if that was the last picture, therefore I'm dead. I must have migrated to this new dimension, and this is what my new experience is. So the bottom line here, I guess, is that she is aware that there is life after death, and because she's still existing, but she's no longer in her body, but she doesn't really understand where she is. Just she sort of knows that she's in this transition. Um, So she describes this next part here of what it actually was like a little bit. So she feels as though this space was a slightly different consistency and shade to what she was experiencing on Earth in terms of the air. Like it's, I don't know, is it thicker or heavier? I don't know. She doesn't really use words there, and she's just in this space. She's present. She's pleasant. She's just able to reflect. So all these things, it's amazing that you still have the ability to reflect, to sense where you are, to see, and all these abilities we have as a human continue on in another form, in our soul form. But for her, it's just become clear, basically, that death is a continuation of life. So it's just another way of putting it, I guess. We just shapeshift or change forms. There's no such thing as death, really. It's just a continuation of our experience in a more real form, I guess, in a form that we're more used to, or it's more natural to us to be in that soul-like state, because obviously this human body we're in now is a very temporary experience when you think of, you know, the grand scheme of things. This life we has as a human is not that long at all, even though it does seem that way a lot of the time. It isn't. It's a very brief experience for the soul. So she feels good though. She says she feels, you know, excited, vibrant. She feels like a little kid. She's very curious and just looking around and experiencing where she is. And she's not scared. She's not met by any other beings, or doesn't experience any blissful, overwhelming love. It's just she's just in this other dimension, and that's where she is, and she's curious. Then she says she feels the dimension changing again, and she feels like she's emerging out of a vacuum like blackness. And during this phase, she has an immense speed, but she can still see. She sees around her. She just feels as though she's moving very quickly, and she arrives at this scene which looks a little bit like her. She can see trees, she can see rocks, she can see a mountain, and then she can, next thing she sees is her body. So yeah, and just trying to read what she says next. So she says when she sees her body, she says she's leaning forward towards the abyss. She joins her body to see what was going on, and then it gets a little bit confusing because she's suddenly looking at this immense light again and finds she's in this amazed state. It's hard to actually tell at this point if she's actually in and back in her human body, or if she's kind of next to her body, witnessing this light in soul form. I'm thinking more the latter. She's not quite back in her body yet. And when she sees this light while she's in this scene on the mountainside next to a human body, she recognizes this light that she's had from meditation experiences, obviously before her accident. She gets moments of insight and strong experiences of unconditional love in this stage of the experience. And again, she realizes that this light she's watching, she's witnessing, is the light that's threaded inside every moment of her life, every moment of our lives. It's always there. We always have access to it. Um, and when she is able to connect to this light, it gives her a feeling of great intimacy, of being powerful, and she just feels like she's able to surrender. She's able to experience joy. She's just relieved to be connected to this light during this phase of the experience. And this next paragraph, she just basically repeats it again. She says, look, this light is always there. It's always available to us. If, if we're aware it's there, we just need to remind ourselves that it is, and to call on it to help us, to connect to it. And I guess that's just a reminder for us in our daily human lives. But back to when you know, this experience she's having is obviously a very profound out of body near death experience. So it's going to be taken to another level. Um, she says this light, I guess this is the heaven-like or blissful or connected state where the soul gets extremely close to the source. This is how she describes it. Some people say love, some people say peace, some people say contentment. She says it's everything she ever needed, everything she might need in the future. Everything, just everything was in this light. It was warm, it was healing, it had a nourishing quality. It was pure, immense, powerful, unconditional love, and she knows she can trust it. She's kneeling down in front of it, and she just is yearning to join it. Like that's what she wants to do. Her soul wants to go and connect to this source, just like it's got this urge to go home almost. And she says at this point of the experience, she's presented with a choice. Does she want to stay with the light and merge with it, or does she want to go back to her human experience? And she chooses to go back to the light. And she says, for one eternal moment after making that choice, so she does merge with this light. So it's interesting because often people are afraid to do this in their near-death experience because they're not sure what will happen. Like they're not sure if once they do that they can come back to their human body. But for her, it's just a no-brainer. This light, this love is so enticing that she doesn't really think about the repercussions of what that decision will have on down here on earth. She just wants to be with this light. And she says, for one eternal moment this happens, and she uses the word eternal. So that moment could have felt like 10,000 years, I guess. Could have felt like a long, long time. And she doesn't really go into any explanation of what timelessness felt like or how long this eternal moment. I guess the word eternal says it all. However, the next thing after this eternal moment is over, which sounds a little bit weird to say, but this is near-death experiences. Like you leave an eternal moment somehow to come back to experience your life on earth. But this is what she does. Even though she wanted to stay with the source and enjoy the peace, love, and light that brings, next thing she knows, she's waking back up in her body. She can't breathe. She has this terrible taste in her mouth like dirt. I always have a bit of a chuckle at this because it must be intensely disappointing to go from these high vibrational love-like states of experiencing bliss and ecstasy and unconditional love to waking up often in a broken, damaged, pain-riddled body. And in her case, yeah, on top of all that, she's tasting dirt in her mouth. She can't breathe. It stinks of smoke and petrol and gasoline. And yeah, it's just that shocking contrast between that blissful state back to pretty much hell. And yeah, you can see why people are reluctant to come back when they've got these difficult experiences to come back into. But it's funny because she says she didn't want to come back, and she ends up back here. So it doesn't really explain how that happened. I guess she doesn't really know why it happened either, because she's just surprised and disappointed. And like I said at the start, then at the very end, she says she kind of feels like she's got part of her soul back in this other dimension. She's still able to peek behind the veil and see what is going on over there. At the same time, is intensely aware of being back in a human body. So I've just been playing around with my microphone and it looks like I have been using it, well, it hasn't been, I don't know, plugged in correctly or on the wrong dial setting. I don't know, I'm no expert, but looking at how this sound is recording now, I can see that it is a lot better quality. So hopefully I can continue to monitor that and give you some better sound. So yeah, that's the end of Romy's experience. I guess the bit I got the most out of was firstly the life review, very detailed, thorough, interesting, unique description of the life review, and every time I read a life review, it's a miraculous thing and it's an exciting thing, and for me it makes me want to improve my life, just because the life review reminds me that I have the ability to affect other people's lives, and I might as well use that ability I have to make other people's lives more enjoyable, and I look forward to reflecting on that and experiencing that from a different perspective when I do get to that point in the next dimension. So for me, I like that bit. I also like the bit where they talked about connecting to the light. It's something I get to do. I'm conscious of doing. I am lucky enough to experience it on a daily basis, so I know it is possible, and it's a wonderful thing to be reminded that there is a higher power being there right in front of us, with us all the time. But like I said, it doesn't take all the suffering away. In fact, when I am in one of those troughs, when I am suffering a bit myself, and that higher power reminds me that it is there, I get a little bit annoyed at it, I guess is the right word, upset at it, that it has left me to experience darkness and negativity and sensations that aren't pleasant to experience, and I kind of resent the fact that there's this higher power there right in front of me, watching me, trying to love me, but at the same time can't rescue me from feeling the way I do. So yeah, I get a little bit upset at God, at Source, at love, or whatever you want to call it, and that is my natural reaction, because I guess I'm supposed to be feeling like that in a way. That's part of the reason that I'm here, is to suffer, unfortunately. to not mince words there, just it is to experience that which I am not. So if I unpack that a little bit, you, me, us, everything is love, and until you get to this physical realm, this earth experience, this human experience, you can understand what love is, what darkness is, but until you are in an environment where you are pretty much forced to deal with it on a daily basis, and you can know about it from this other dimension, but until you're there and it's so real you can't escape it, type of thing that we all go through, that's when you really begin to understand what it is and what it feels like. And that's how I rationalize the difficulties and challenges that life throws at you, and when you look at it that way, it kind of gives you a new perspective, and you see it almost, I wouldn't put it in the terms of gift, but I try to see it that way, and I try to at least understand that that's why I am feeling this pain or feeling this suffering, is to understand that this is the experience my soul has chosen to persevere through, and it's not forever, and at the end of the day you get to go home, go back to this loving dimension, go back to this place where there is no fear, where there is no suffering, and you get to carry the experience you had with you as a reminder for what it's like, and I guess as a way to explain to other souls what it was like. I don't know. Is that what it's like? Who knows? But yeah, at the end of the day, this is not who we are. This suffering is not forever. This suffering is a way of us understanding how precious the core of what we are is, and that is love. And what we go through here in terms of the difficulties is not a representation of our true selves. So now that I've found, got the microphone working again, I look forward to bringing you a good quality audio next episode. And yeah, apologies for many weeks of pretty average sound, and there'll probably be many more episodes with that average sound because of me pre-recording some of them. But yeah, I'll wrap it up by wishing you a very Merry Christmas, happy holidays, or whatever it is that you do at this time of year, and worship, and whatever it is. But just at the end of the day, just try to remember to love yourselves, because you are amazing, and I send you my love too. So I will bid you farewell and talk to you next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.